Hello.
Hello.
Welcome to Middle Fingers Up. I'm your host, Kieran. And today's conversation, or maybe I should say tonight's conversation, is one that I have been looking forward to so much because this kind of conversation asks us to sit with the discomfort we keep hearing about, that unlearning, we read about, and a lot of what we think we know and get honest about when it comes to power. My guest today is Farida D. She is a writer, a thinker, an author whose work challenges the way feminism is often simplified, sanitized, and separated from real life. And so outside of this writer, thinker, and author, she's truly a human. She's truly a woman who is talking about lived experience. And that's what makes this facts. So this is a conversation about feminism, not as a label, but as lived reality, about what people get wrong, including myself, about who feminism actually serves and who it leaves behind. And it's also about the truth that for many women, feminism isn't something you opt into. So it's something, you're kind of forced to navigate simply by existing. So I want to welcome our guest. We are on like two completely opposite time zones. And we've done this before here on MFFU. And I'm really, really grateful for this, that we can invite people from all over the world. But literally, I am sitting on a date like February 11th, and she is on tomorrow time, February 12th. So this is how far away we are. But look, we're here. We're kind of in the same room talking about the things that matter. Farida, welcome. Thank you so, so much for answering my messages and wanting to talk to this weird ass lady over here in Canada. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to be on your podcast. And wow, what an introduction. I'm already speechless.
I appreciate the humbleness. And honestly, a lot of what you write, a lot of how you share your thoughts on social media, I think leave a lot of us women, specifically women of color. I'm a brown woman, I'm a Punjabi woman, so I can only speak as a South Asian, but I do feel a lot of us kind of sit in the same room when it comes to this speechlessness and this place of, holy crap, is she saying what I'm feeling? Oh, she's naming the thing that I've been wondering about. So I'm really excited to get into it with you. So thank you.
Oh, I can't wait. Because what you're bringing up is actually because patriarchy is one system everywhere. The only difference is that it manifests differently in different cultures, religions, contexts. So that is the reason why, like, when I write something as a Middle Eastern woman, a Western woman can relate, any woman from around the world can relate, because we all experience patriarchy. We're all thrust under that system. It's just the manifestation of it differs based on your, location, religion, cultural aspects. It just presents itself in a slightly different way, but the root of it is the same.
And that's so well said. And I think there is a reason for that, because we are all bound by history. We are all connected by the patterns that have existed before us and before the people before us, and so on and so on. And here we are today in this beautiful way you say, so connected. And I think that is what makes us humans. And I think that's the part that we forget and live in this very individualized box.
Because that's also part of, sorry to interrupt you.
Thank you.
That's part of the way patriarchy wants us to see it. It wants us to see that we are isolated. It wants us to see that the concerns or the issues that an Eastern woman is going through will be so much different than the ones that Western, like we're so disconnected, we're not the same. And you see it also manifest in conversations where they're like, oh, the things you care about or the oppressions you're going through are nothing compared to women in XXO location. This is just a way to minimize the conversation and to see that we are disconnected. We're not really connected. But once, if we see the connection and the similarities between us, it makes us stronger together as a sisterhood bond globally, and to fight the system in a much more organized way than to see ourselves as completely. Intersectionalism is still very important because it helps us see how the system manifests in different ways. But looking at our similarities is also really important. It's not something to overlook.
Well said, because in the end, all that happens is we are so divided, and that part that divides us, like as you said, isolates us. And not only is it okay with patriarchy, misogyny, the world that we live in, as individuals, as women, we ourselves begin to feel very lonely. And, you know, all you can think about in a room by yourself is, okay, this is only what I'm going through. And it's hard to see the big picture. And sometimes we get into arguments. And I think women listening know this. We stop talking to each other. We represent patriarchy, misogyny so well. We do the hard work for men, for capitalism, for fascism, all of the isms. We do such a good job disconnecting ourselves and who we are as women when we represent all these other isms in the world. And I think that's what today's conversation is, to like show up naked, I guess, in the best way that I can say it, because I think it's really listen with care and learn with care. And that's why I'm here today, because I'm almost a 45-year-old Punjabi woman raising 2 biracial boys, and they're teenagers, and I look at them and I think, gosh, what could I be doing today, and what could I have been doing yesterday, and what's so important for tomorrow when I'm raising these 2 young boys who are going to exist with other women in the world. And I think that's what's led my curiosity to ask you and invite you when I came across your reading. So if I could just start with little Farida, I believe in working on that inner child, going back and connecting with that little us, because we all have stories about the little me who didn't, who did, and whatnot. And I'm curious about little Farida. I ask my guests this often, like if you can go back into that time machine and go back to that first age when you became aware that girls and boys, and maybe the question will change in how I ask, but when girls and boys were treated differently, like how old were you? When did you realize as a little one, oh, I'm othered. I'm being told that I'm not as equal as my brother or that other boy in the schoolyard or whatnot. I want to know what that was like for you when you recognize that, because I think that's an important part for all of us women when we were little girls and what we were taught.
Yes, definitely. That's a very, very interesting question. I believe that we're all born feminists. Nobody is born a misogynist. We're all born with this innate quality that nobody's born hating an other or that women should be oppressed or have less rights. So whenever I'm asked, like, when did you first feel or figure out feminism, I like to flip the question around and say, when did I first notice the misogyny? And you could say around the age of maybe 8, 9, 10, this is the age where your body's developing, puberty is starting, and now the rules are changing. You're no longer allowed the same freedoms as you're saying, like your brother or the other boys. Now you have to dress in a specific way. You need to start learning how to cover up, like going out, playing outside. The rules change a little bit around that age. And that's when you start questioning, like, why is it different for me? And then usually you'll get shut down by answers like, you're a girl. That's what it's like for girls. You're a girl. I know a lot of women growing up in that stage of girlhood, let's say, where you get so frustrated of being treated differently that you start hating being a girl. I want to be more like a boy. I don't like pink. I don't like girly things. I don't like all these things associated with girl because I do not like the restrictions that come with that label. And you start embracing a sort of an other personality other than another identity, because thinking that if I'm more like the boys, then I'll get more freedom in a way. It's confusing, like at that age, like thinking back, I believe this is when we first learn how to internalize misogyny, how to,
Yeah.
yeah, how to like hate ourselves. And it's not because of who we are, but it's because of the structures and the restrictions that are placed on us that make you not want to identify with who you are, because who you are is so restricted and forbidden from having the same freedoms that boys do.
Mm-hmm. I think that's well said.
Mhm.
Like, as you're talking, I'm like, oh, like thinking about myself. I'm the oldest of three, and my
Mhm.
sister's the middle child. And my baby brother came when I was 10 years old. And up until he came, and even after, we were treated well and we were always loved. And there was always a guilt because you don't want to put your family in a place of making them think
Mhm.
that you weren't loved. So you want to say, I was loved, I was treated well.
Yes.
But it was different when my brother came. The joy and the excitement and the prayers, going to the temple and praying for a boy, and
Yeah.
the boy has to carry the name, the boy is
Mhm.
everything. And you see how that kind of pedestal our boys are put on. And in the Western world here, particularly, I can only speak for here in parts of Canada, like we see a lot of our community boys not doing well. And I
Mhm.
think because we put them in this place of they're supposed to be superior and better, and it's a complex that we give them before they're even born. And then
Exactly.
and
Like
then, you know, we get into gangs and violence and all these kinds of things. And I think, I mean, maybe you have something you want to say to that or add to that.
because like if you're already, as you were saying, like praying for the boy and you want the boy and all that, like the boy is already given credit before he is even born. So
Yeah.
why would he put the effort to be a better person when he is already treated as a complete human being before he even existed, as an entity that is wished for or wanted or desired and more superior than the girl?
Yeah.
So if you're already born into that, then why would I even better myself? Or I'm already superior. Why would I better myself? There is no room for
Yeah.
improvement when you're already told and treated in a way that you are already at the top. You're already complete as a human being. There's no room for improvement. And I think this is where like we start to see the seeds of privilege and
Mm.
entitlement and all these kinds of behaviors where men see themselves as having superiority over women. It starts from this very young, even before they're born. Their privilege is there even before they're born.
And I think the most well-intended, most aware man out there
Mhm.
can struggle so much, let alone us women that protect him, about
Mhm.
misogyny and this whole thing that we're talking about. Because a lot of times the bar, like, is it in hell essentially, and we think, oh, he's so good because he showed up to this, this event holding his
Mhm.
baby in his arms, or
Yeah.
oh, he's so good he babysits his kids, oh, he's so good he cooks, oh, he's so good he does these things
Mhm.
that, like, I always joke with my sister-in-law, like, I've seen even my husband's mom,
Mhm.
and again, this has nothing to do with culture because my husband's white, so it
Mhm.
doesn't matter what
Yep.
community you come from. Men are seen the way they're seen from every race, as you had said at the beginning.
Mhm.
And when we host dinner, like the amount of praise I have seen his own mother give him, and I've seen this in a lot of kitchens when the man
Mhm.
is doing the work of, oh, you're amazing, you did this. And I joke with my sister and my sister-in-law, I'm like, we have Christmas this dinner here, and I'm like, man, nobody gives praise at dinner before the end of the dinner to the people that are going to be in the kitchen cleaning, like the women that are in the kitchen cleaning the pots and pans, right? Like, it's so simple and it's like tongue in cheek, but it's an example of so many everyday things that we both do. And when we as women push back, then it's, oh, well, as a man, I do all these other things though. Like it automatically, you can't win because you're in this comparing place. And I think we're born equal, and you write about that too. We're born equal, but we need men and we need society, particularly the men in society, to see that, as you say, that this equality exists. Like, we need them to accept it.
To stop letting the bar end for men at exactly the point where it begins for women.
Yeah. Yes, well said. And your book, The List of Shit That Made Me a Feminist, great title, by the way. I want a t-shirt, please. It's so well done. And in this book, like, you talk a lot about, you don't choose this, like what feminism actually is. One of the core through lines in your work is this idea that feminism isn't a choice for many women. It's a response to reality. So when people say, hey, I choose feminism, I'm a supporter of women, I hire women in the workplace, like, what do you think they misunderstand about what feminism actually is when they say those words, I choose feminism?
They misunderstand it as a favor. They think, oh, I hire women, I'm all for diversity, or I as a husband, I cook and I clean and all these things. They see it as if they're doing us a favor.
Yeah.
As if embracing feminism is a favor, which inherently kind of exposes subconsciously that you think I am not your equal. That is why you think doing all those things for me, you deserve a gold star for doing them. Because you inherently are not seeing me as an equal. And why is that? Why do you think that way? If as humans we're born equal, why do you not see that? And why do you see it as a favor when you say, I'm choosing feminism, I am a feminist?
Have you ever asked that question to men? And I'm curious, like, what you may have gotten in return to that.
You mean the question of like, why are you a feminist?
Yeah.
Yes. And usually, like, the men who are allies, who truly like understand that women are your equal, they do not want or behave in a way that I am waiting for praise from you for doing this. They do not say, look, I'm doing this and I'm doing this, and look, I'm choosing feminism and I'm hiring women, or I'm a husband who cooks and cleans. They do not center that in their...
So what do they center?
They treat it as like something normal, not as something to be praiseworthy.
It's like an everyday living and breathing thing that we do.
Yes. This is the normal part of being an adult and a human. I cook, I clean, I treat other people with respect. I hold the door open for anyone that's behind me. It's not because you're a woman and I think
chivalry.
Exactly. Yeah. So they behave in a way that this is just a normal part of being a human. Whereas the men who do it the other way, like you're saying, like, I choose feminism, I'm doing this and that. I do not think these are actually feminists. It's a way of, how can I put this? It's a performance. It's performative.
I see that and I agree with you. I've been at events recently too, where there will be politicians or there'll be men there, and they get up in a room full of women and they speak, and the first thing they say is, oh, I'm a feminist. And I literally shut off. I'm like, I don't care what you're going to say after this. I don't care how much money you're donating. There's something that I don't trust about you. It's kids and animals see this when you say I'm a safe person,
Yes.
right? If you have to say those
If you
words to
have
a
to say it,
child,
then
a
you're not.
child,
Yeah.
hell
Yeah.
yeah. Like I don't have to walk around ever saying I'm a safe person. Like
Exactly.
people will figure that out on their own, and if they feel I am, great, and I hope they do. That's my hope. And I think that's a thing where we get smitten and we get taken by that, because I've also seen women in a room that are like applauding that. And again, because the bar's in hell,
Exactly. That's
we
the
think,
reason.
oh, well, that's at least they're saying that. At least they paid for this event. At least they showed up. And I'm like, I would way rather them not show up, because then we know who they really are. Like this is them not being real. So I guess my question, I do this, I talk for 17 minutes and then ask a question in there, but
I love what you're saying. I love taking it in.
if today I'm listening and I think I am a feminist, or I think that I care for women, whether I'm a woman or I'm not, like how do I know, and where does the work start? Like what's the thing for me to build awareness around? I have work to do around caring for humanity, in this particular conversation, women.
I mean, let's try to like flip the script for a minute. Imagine if a woman is walking around the world and she's like, oh, I support men. I cook for my husband, and I clean, and I'm such a safe woman. I never hit men. And or if she goes into an event and she starts her speech with, I support men, and we do not walk around the world in that way. We do not walk about our day that way, because it is assumed already that as a woman, you're not out there to explicitly see yourself as more superior or as better than a man and behave accordingly. We do not exist in that framework, which is why the exact same behavior that a woman would do for a man just goes by unnoticed. But if a man is doing that to a woman, it's like praiseworthy, or wow, you're lucky your husband watches the kids or cooks or cleans, or he's saying he's a feminist. You're so lucky. But if a wife is doing those things, is the husband lucky? We do not operate in the same framework. It is seen as something normal. This is what a normal human, not even a woman, a normal human is supposed to be like. But when it comes to us looking at how men are behaving, suddenly the standard shifts. It changes. It is not, he's not a normal human. He is suddenly the good man, the nice guy. It's like put on a pedestal, as you were saying in the beginning.
Yeah, you got lucky, you got that one. And we hear that when we say that, well, not all men are that way. Like that's a first place we go to. Like even when we think about right now going around in America, the whole Epstein files. And I'm not sure if you're following that. It's all over in our media, whether we want to follow it or not. And if you get my experience, if I have been in a conversation with women versus men, with women, there's no subtitles to this. We either know someone or we've all experienced sexual assault. And at the very least, we know what it's like. Should we run outside, go for a run in the dark, or we get into our car in a dark parking lot? Like all of us know, get your keys ready, be looking around, pretend you're on your phone. We all know what we have to do, whether we've been assaulted or not, because we know what happens enough. And you talk about these Epstein files, or you talk about these sexual assault cases with children, with women, and often you hear, well, not all men are that way. Or we have to be careful when we talk about this. We don't know all the facts. And I'm blown away anytime that I come across that kind of a conversation. And sometimes women will say that too. It's not just men, because as you said earlier, we've been raised in a patriarchal society. So we are all representing patriarchy until we...
Yes, correct.
Totally, right? And I want to break that kind of dialogue down, because in the end, I think of, as I said to you earlier, like my motivation is my children. I want to leave them in a world, and I want them to be around women, men non-binary and feel safe around my children. Like, that's my hope. My children are safe people for these people, whoever they're around. So how do we break that kind of conversation down when we hear comments like, well, it's not all men, or you got to be careful, that's not the way it is? Or sometimes I'll hear from people, oh, you're one of those feminist people. You hate men. You hate men.
Like, of course. What? If you're a feminist, you hate men.
Like, I get
it's a precondition to love men. I must hate myself. I can't stand up for my rights and love men at the same time. Like, it's contradictory, because the way we define love towards men is submission, women's submission, which is wrong. We romanticize submission and accepting our state as inferior, which is decided for us by patriarchy. And if we don't accept those things, then, oh, you must hate men. There's no other way. And it's a way to shut you down. And like this whole not all men conversation, it's just a derailing technique. It's not gonna lead the conversation to anywhere. And I always like to like shut this down and rebuttal it. I write a lot about it, because it's all men. All men. And when we say it is all men, what we mean by that is all men are protected by patriarchy. All men are allowed, should they want to, abuse whatever. There is an excuse for it. There is a way that it gets swept under the rug. There is a way to normalize it. There is a way to excuse it. This is what we mean when we say all men.
Mm-hmm.
So not all men would choose to behave in those ways, but all men are allowed to under the patriarchy. And recognizing that difference is very important in starting that conversation, because it makes no sense when we keep saying not all men, not all men. Yeah, we know not all men. We're married to men. We give birth to men. We love men.
Yeah.
We know not all men. Otherwise, humanity wouldn't continue. But saying that statement as a rebuttal to shut down a conversation where we're talking about men's violence or privilege or critiquing these structures under patriarchy, saying not all men is not helpful, because under patriarchy all men have that privilege and entitlement and protection. Should they decide to use that for something good, that is on the individual man to do. And should they decide to abuse that, that is also up to the individual to do. But when we're challenging systems, we're not talking about individual people. We're talking about how, as a system, you protect a specific gender. You give them certain privileges and entitlement. And it is actually accurate to say that it is all men that get that privilege and entitlement. Because if we want to fight these structures that privilege certain genders over others and harm people and oppress people, we have to acknowledge this truth, even if it sounds uncomfortable, because it is what, if we're honest and we look at these structures in an honest way, this is how they are structured.
As you talk, I think about, like, I'm a visual person, and I think about growing up. I always wondered why the women, my aunts, my grandmother, my mother, like all the women that were meant to be my role models as women, honestly, they couldn't really be role models. And they would be in the kitchen doing all the cooking when we'd have family gatherings. And the whole evening, they would be in the kitchen laughing, doing whatever they need to do, cooking. And they also were the ones that ate last. And when dinner came, the men got served first and the men ate. And then they ate, and they never sat at the same dining room table. They sat and stood around the kitchen where they were cooking and ate. And I talked to my boys about that. We have to shift that, and you have to be part of that. Like, it should never be that the woman, or if we were living in a world where it was all you boys doing that you have to wait till the end. Why are we not in there working together and helping each other? And, you know, we're the partnership and the village and that whole mentality. Like at the end of the day, our communities, your culture, my culture, we come from a collective society, but it's interesting when that collectivism shows up.
Yep.
And how often for women, it really doesn't, unless if it's a group of women together that, you know, that are getting together. And I really feel some people like you who watch, experience, write a book called The List of Shit That Made Me a Feminist. It's like really pushing that childhood that many of us grew up with, watching that happen and saying, no, it's time for us women to eat first. And that doesn't make it, we hate men. It doesn't make it that the men won't eat. It just means we also got to eat. That's a biological need.
Yeah. When you bring that up, because in Middle Eastern culture, we also have the same norm.
Yeah, I bet, right?
Yeah, where the women eat after the men. And I grew up watching that. Specifically, like I grew up watching my grandmother eat after my grandfather is done from his plate, his leftovers. And I hated watching that when I was younger, and I just didn't know why. I didn't know why at that time, like why this upset me when I was a kid, watching that. And now that you're bringing it up, it's bringing all these feelings back for me. And I remember, like specifically when I got married, that I wanted to ensure we eat together. I will not eat after you, and I will not wait for you to finish, and I'm not going to eat the leftovers from your plate. We will eat together. And in the beginning of our marriage, we used to joke about, let's take the first bite together. And we'd literally count 1, 2, 3 and take the bite together so that we're eating together. We don't do that anymore, like literally 1, 2, 3. But yeah, this, as you're saying, we need to eat, especially we've been the ones standing doing all the cooking and all that. And then to see the woman sitting and just waiting for her husband finish his meal. And then she gets to eat whatever is left over. And also this idea that a woman needs a smaller plate, which makes you ashamed of going for like a second helping. Like I'm supposed to eat less than what men eat. Whereas nourishment and what you need to eat depends on your body, doesn't depend on your gender.
Right. Yeah, like all these messages that get sent and we seen and felt and heard and all growing up, they don't go nowhere. They build up within us, and some of us build our own belief system based off of that without realizing it, or like as you're like, oh, I'm remembering this and it used to make me mad, and here you are talking about the work you're doing. There's a connection there. You saw something at a very young age. And like when you wrote this book, what did you hope readers would sit with after they finished the book? Did you ever think about that, or do you wonder about that?
I wanted to make you feel the fire that's already inside you, not to tell you something new. I wanted you as a reader to feel what's already inside you and connect with it, and to make you see that there is another person in this world who thinks the way you think. You're not alone.
I think you're accomplishing that. I know I can speak for myself coming across your work and growing up in a Western world where there's a lot of privilege for us women to an extent. And the fact that I even have to say that is telling, right?
Yeah.
Like how many men get to sit there and be like, there's so much privilege for me, right? Even as a woman, I'm like, oh, because as you said earlier, because we're taught, well, there's women, and you know, I know women in India and women in other parts of the world don't have it. So then you feel, and it's so similar. Even if you think about, I'm not sure if you have children.
Yes, I do.
But you do. Okay. And so you may relate. Birth stories is like another weird ass thing we do, where we compare, and it's one of the first thing women bond with when they meet and they share. And the harder, you know, traumatic your story, the more credit you get because you're a real woman. You're strong, and we have to show our strength at the same level as a man's strength.
Definitely.
Because he can open a jar of peanut butter, right? Like it's all these things like we don't realize. We talk about them, we say them out loud, and like the way we look at our body dysmorphia is a part of misogyny. Like it's because women never said we have to look a certain way.
It is.
Men have told us how we have to look.
Definitely, yeah. And I delved deeper into like motherhood and postpartum and all that, and the second list of shit. As you know, it's a 10-book series, and each book like delves deeper into a particular topic. Like there's motherhood, there is racism, there is sexuality, there is like every part delves deeper into a particular topic. So yes, motherhood is, I want to say, a shock to the system for me, because you are expected to self-sacrifice in a way that you will not know what this is until you're in it, until you're thirsty, and until you experience it yourself. Because everywhere around you in the media and whatever we're taught about motherhood is that it's this easy breezy experience that every woman dreams of having, and it's portrayed in a way that is very misleading. You do not see, like, you see the happy mom pictures and all that on social media. You do not see, or like lately, more recently, like recent influencers would post about the reality of what it's like and the mess of what it's like to be a mother and the hard parts, and not have this kind of shame and taboo of talking about the hard parts of motherhood. Because if you do talk about these things, you're portrayed as if, oh, you're not a good mother, or we're not supposed to say this is hard. We're supposed to say, I'm grateful. This is not a hard experience. This is what I am made for. And all these things. We're not supposed to acknowledge the difficulty of the entire process.
No. And then if you throw in the complicating factor of women who cannot have children and the process they go through, particularly women that want to have children, and the rejection that they experience, and the fascinating thing about it is if you talk to a couple that's trying to have a baby and they're having a difficult time, where do we look? We all think it's the woman. It's her lack of ability to fertilize and be able to have this baby. We don't ever, or very rarely, think, oh, the man could be part of the issue.
Which is biologically incorrect, because biologically men are the ones who have the biological clock, and the man's determines the gender. And all these things, like even in our Middle Eastern cultures, where, you know, if a woman is just giving birth to daughters and daughters and daughters and she doesn't bring the son, it's her fault that she did not bring the son. However, it is all, the whole patriarchy flips the script in every single way. If you look into science and biology, it tells you otherwise.
Totally. And then they wonder, like, your work, I would imagine a lot of critical feedback about how angry you must be, because you're naming something that's real. But when we do that, a lot of times, and the best way I can explain what I'm trying to say is, like, I, in the last couple of years, have gone through this awakening of how much internal racism I have grown up with, growing up in Canada, and how white I thought I was and how white I wanted to be, and a lot of me not realizing that until one day I wake up and I say, holy shit, I'm brown, and now I got to do this work. And as soon as I started to realize this, I've only had a very few friends of color. Most of my friends all my life have been white. Who I'm actually, many of them, I'm the really, really close ones, I'm not friends with anymore. Because as soon as I started to wake up and realize and build this awareness, it was, oh, you're so angry. You're so angry. You're so angry. And that was what they kept rejecting and throwing back at me. And I started to actually learn about feminism through these white women and what white feminism is, and this like fake thing of sisterhood that they throw at you. But when you are realizing these sorts of internal racist stuff and all about racism, and you write about this in your books too, is very interesting, this dynamic, because there is feminism, but it's broken down and there's a huge divide of, well, if you're a white woman, it's viewed very different of how white women have been able to navigate their career, their life, their world than us Black, brown, Indigenous women and Asian women. Like, I want to throw all of us women of color. I don't want to miss anyone. So I'm curious for you, because my experience is out in the West, you're out in the Middle East, but you write about some of this stuff. Yeah. So can we talk a little bit about that? Like where and social media talks a lot about it too. So I'm sure you see all of that too, about white feminism. Yes. And I'm curious about your thoughts about that.
So like privilege is, I think of it like Lego building blocks. You have layers. There is, you could be oppressed as a woman, but you could have privilege because you're white. So these are two different things. And navigating these two things, navigating the idea that I could be, as a woman, I am oppressed, but as a white person, I hold privilege. And as an able-bodied person, I hold privilege. As a heterosexual person, I hold privilege. So we are, as human beings, we are a multitude of different identities and a multitude of different intersections. You could hold privilege in one aspect and not in another. And recognizing that is very important. Like, for example, a Black man has privilege as a man, however, does not have privilege with race. So recognizing these different variables, like Lego building blocks, I like to think of them, like different pieces, helps you to be a more compassionate person and understand where your position is and where you have the privilege or the stronger points where you can speak out for and make the world a better place. Use that, because privilege is, we do not necessarily have to think of privilege as something bad unless we're using it to do bad things. If we can use our privilege to do something good, to extend to others, then we're making use of our privilege in a good way, not in a negative sense, if that makes that
makes all the sense. I think the latter, that negative sense, is how you see people get defensive, because people, anytime privilege is, you're reminded of your privilege, people get defensive about it. Yep. Like it's something to hide or not be okay with. And I think the opposite. I think I might need to be reminded at times. I'm human and I appreciate that. But at the same time, I like to hope that, I can see, as a Punjabi woman growing up in Canada, I'm going to have so many different privileges and opportunities than a fellow Punjabi relative or woman growing up in India.
Of course.
And I think there's no right or wrong, as you're saying. It's just like recognizing, like, as you're saying, where we're at. But I feel it seems so much more simpler said than done, because when we're in these situations, it gets nasty. People don't want to be reminded of it because they go right to, well, I'm a good person.
Yeah, because they see it as like you're attacking their personality and who they are. We do not choose our privileges and our oppressions. We do not choose them. We are born into pre-existing systems that were placed by the people before us. So I'm not blaming you as a person for the privilege that you have. I'm looking at your actions within that structure of privilege. What are you doing to dismantle it? What are you doing to extend that privilege to others and to eradicate or dismantle that you deserve that privilege as a birthright because of your race or your gender or your social class or whatever social construct that you're born into, that you did not choose?
It's a good question, right? And I think if we're getting upset about it, then sometimes it's guilt.
Guilt, and it's also a reflection of, I want to hold on to that privilege. I don't want to let go of it. And I don't want you to call me or see me as a bad person or challenge me for holding on to that privilege. And this is where the not all men conversation also fits in or comes in. It's like, not all men are doing that. Not all men are Okay, but men are born in a system where the structure privileges all of them. So what is the point of you saying, not all men, or I'm not like, okay, you are not like that as an individual, you as a person. However, we are talking about structures, not an individual person. We are talking about systems where people inside them either choose to dismantle these systems for the better of everyone, or they choose to hold on to and be defensive and hold on to and recycle this privilege for the next generation instead of opening it up, breaking it wide open and letting everyone benefit. Because, as I also mentioned in the first list of shit that made me a feminist, freedom is not, we shouldn't think of it as like a pie that is like the more for me, the less for you. There is space for all of us.
Right. Like we're all here, so there has to be space.
Exactly.
If we're taking up air and there's breathing room, so then why does it feel like it's not? And I think you do such a good thing when you talk about resistance and backlash and these misunderstandings, like especially from people who benefit from the status quo. Like I think these are important points that you're making. And I also want to note, if I'm allowed to, like we do video and audio here at MFU. At least we've started to in the last little while. And there's a reason why we're doing audio today. And that part of that is for you keep your identity private.
I do not have the privilege to show you my identity and maintain my safety. I do not have that privilege. So this is the reason why. But I do have the privilege of sharing my words, which I want you to focus on. It matters to me more than my identity, the words that I want to share.
Yeah. And I just think that's important to note, because we're talking about privilege for the last little while, and what my privilege is, and we're both women, we're both women of color, and here we are, right? Like that's important for me to acknowledge as well, as a fellow brown woman, that I have the capacity and ability to show my face, to go on social media, to have videos, and to openly talk about some of these things that other women, yourself included, don't have that capacity. And yet you have found a way to share your knowledge and give.
I have the privilege of the education. I do not have the privilege of the safety. So this is what my best way to merge the two together. Yes.
That's well done. And I'm grateful. I'm grateful that we get some part of you in some sort of way. And thank you for that, because I think there's still probably a risk in what you do, yet you continue to do it. And I can tell that that's important for you to get that across. So Farida, here on MFU, we do a little thing, and I didn't get a chance to tell you this, so I'm going to tell you this now. But I always ask all my guests, what is one thing you would want to put your middle fingers up to? So we are called middle fingers up, and we're not, maybe I'll give you a quick little explanation. It's not a disrespect to a person, but it's middle fingers is fighting the stigma. It's fighting the isms. It's fighting the things in the world that we beat around and we can't get out and talk about. And so I always ask my guests, if there was one thing here that you could bring to light, put your middle fingers up to, so that we can talk more about it, what would that be for you?
The patriarchy, of course. The systems of oppression in general, all the isms we were taught, we addressed all of that, because to me it does not make any sense. It does not have any benefit for certain genders or races to be born into a specific privilege, like you're better than everybody else, you deserve these rights because of your gender or your race or whatever other social construct. These social constructs, they have to go if we want to make this world a better place and inclusive for everybody.
And where do we start? Like, what could be one thing for those that are listening today, just one place that they could start to help us get there?
Listen to you as a woman, you mean, or as a man, or as an oppressor, or as a person inside the
All of the above, D,
all of
everyone.
it.
For anyone and everyone, because I feel like we all have a place to continue building and working. And so, right, matters not as a man, woman, in
Yep,
this
we
case,
all have work
binary,
to
not
do.
like
Yep.
we all have something we can do to make this world we live in safer for everyone.
Yes.
So, but maybe you have something particular for the men. But yeah, where can we start? I know young people, I know people of all ages are listening. So everyone's in kind of a different path, but maybe there's one thing that people can kind of think about and do.
Trust your rage. Trust your gut. Trust that feeling inside your body, in your bones, that tells you when there's something that this does not feel right. Like we were talking earlier about how, when you were talking about the women eating after the men, when I was seeing that and I was a kid and I did not really understand yet, like the structures of patriarchy, feminism, hierarchies, and all that, but I saw that and I felt a reaction towards it. Trust that reaction you get when you are exposed or you witness these interactions, because this feeling is telling you something. It is telling you what to do. It is telling you what we deserve as human beings. It's a guide, and we as women we're taught to like tame the rage, not be angry, not be but I do not see anger as something destructive the way patriarchy defines it for men and normalizes it for men. Like if you're angry you can just punch the walls and throw the furniture around, or be violent, and that's okay because you are angry. No, this is not what I mean when I say trust and listen to the rage. Anger can be a constructive emotion. It can guide us. It can be an early warning system. It can tell you this is not okay, this does not feel right, so what should I do about it? And you can pour your anger into different things, into activism, into speaking out, into I pour my anger into my writing. As you mentioned earlier, you can feel sometimes the anger in my words.
Yeah.
I pour it there. So anger can be a constructive emotion, not a destructive one. So listen to that. Let that guide you. Everything you need to know, I believe, is already inside you.
Yeah, I think that's well said. And I hope you know when I did say that about your when I read that anger in it, like for me, it's permission. When I read your work, I feel connected and I feel permission. I feel validated. I feel seen. I feel I'm not the only one. And sometimes it's like knowing that there's another voice, another belief, another person like yourself out there that's also in this, that's seen it, felt it, experienced it. And I think when, like, as we said right at the beginning, when we're divided and we're taught this is just you, and the famous word on social media everywhere is gaslighting. So I'm sure a lot of people will connect to that word. But when people make you feel, and particularly men make us feel like, oh no, sweetie, that's just you, there's a sign. And I think that anger, as you were saying, like it just accumulates from that little girl, like you said, watching the women. And as we get older, it just gets louder and louder. Like I know for me, for years, my gut was telling me a lot of things. And I think, we didn't even talk about it, but this is where also like gut health or physical health, our nervous system, our cortisol levels, like all these things play such a big part in our body.
Yeah, definitely.
And it's carried through genes and generations. So it's like sometimes not just your own anger you're carrying, as particularly as women of color, it's our ancestors and the work that our grandmothers and the grandmothers before
and the way
couldn't do.
Yes, definitely. And the way you see the sadness in our mothers and in our grandmothers, this is the rage that they did not give permission or permit themselves to listen to. It turns into sadness. And I see it when I look at like women that I came from. I see the sadness. And I wonder what could have their lives have been like if they had listened to the rage instead of letting it turn back in and turn into sadness. And of course, we have to also keep in mind that there are structures in place everywhere, all around us, that force women to keep these things inside them. So it's not just a woman can simply choose to listen to that rage. And because imagine, like, if you're in a society where you're banned from studying, you're not allowed to have a job, you don't have your own money, you don't have your own property, you depend on a man for financial support, a divorce is stigmatized, your husband is abusive, if you want to get divorced, he'll take your children. Imagine if you're in a structure that is like that, and then people would tell you, well, why did you stay, or why don't you listen to your rage and get out of this? It kind of ignores all these systemic pressures that stop you from. I do not believe any woman wants to stay in an oppressive state. It is the structures around her that force her to sit where she is.
Yeah. And I think that's well said, because sometimes for anyone listening, like, I think sometimes it becomes, well, why are you choosing to stay there? Why are you still in that? You hear this a lot in the Western world. If you don't like your life,
Just
change it.
leave, change it,
And
just
then
leave,
it's like so
It's like
easy, like go just, yeah.
you're ignoring all the
And
systemic things and the systemic structures that make it difficult to change. I do not believe that someone is in a state where, they are in an oppressed, abusive position and they want to stay there and they don't want to get out of it. They're like enjoying it. Like, this is how the
yeah.
question, when it's asked, why did the woman stay? It sounds as if she was
Mm,
enjoying where she is and you're blaming her for staying, instead of pointing the finger the other way and saying, why is the man behaving that way? Why is the system designed that way? How can we break those, or how can we open those doors that are locked that keep her staying there? We need to shift our focus
yeah.
into what keeps her there, instead of asking her, why are you staying there?
Yeah. And that's the big thing, is the shift, as you're saying, looking at it from another angle of, okay, hold on a second, we've been using the same dialogue for how long now, and that's not working.
Mhm.
So what do we do now?
Safety is a privilege as well. Safety. If a
Yeah.
woman is not safe to break open all those doors and get out, she's not safe, she has no support, how do you expect her to do it? And then she's blamed as well. On top of all that, she's blamed for staying.
And then she's also blamed for leaving if she
Oh,
does
yeah,
find
of
a way to
course. If she
leave.
does manage to break through all these hurdles and leave, it's like, oh, you broke up the family unit, or you're not a good woman anymore, or whatever, like, phrasing that is used. It's like you cannot win. With patriarchy, it's designed in a way that you lose either way. You cannot win doing this or this. And it's not just in abusive situations, it's also in basically in any situation. Women are criticized for saying yes when it comes even to, like, sex, for example. If you consent, you're a slut. If you say no, you get raped,
Mm-hmm.
or you're a prude, or whatever. There is no way out of these structures, when every way or every path is leads in the end to you failing, to you seen as you have failed.
Yeah, and I think there is, like, and maybe the word that comes to my mind, relief. Like,
Mhm.
in the way we talk, you would think that there's going to be stress, but there's actually a sense of relief, because we're naming what's happening
Mhm.
around us, and when we're naming these structures. And I know for me, when I was going through even just my internal racism stuff,
Mhm.
I started seeing a therapist. I was brown, and she had language to
Mhm.
help me frame what was happening. Because when you can't see a bird's eye view
Yep.
and recognize, there's these structures around that are blocking me from my safety, as you were describing, a woman that doesn't have the choice to
Mhm.
leave or to stand up for herself. And I'm not comparing my experience to that, but I'm just saying, when you're in a white supremacy society, there are these systems in a similar way, and they're so embedded in everyday language and how we talk and act and behave.
Of course.
And when someone can pull that out and
Mhm.
show you and say, this is why you're feeling this way, or this is the language behind it, I
Mhm.
think you may not maybe choose to do something different, but more than anything, you have a sense of relief that,
Exactly. Understanding.
okay,
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
understand
Like,
it?
I'm not crazy.
And this is how we learn, like, this is the deliberate, that there is no language for these structures, because this is how we learn patriarchy and how we normalize patriarchy. Patriarchy is not like there's something like a headquarters somewhere where, or a school that we go to and learn patriarchy from it. It is learned through our language, our conversations, our media, our relationships, religions, what we normalize. And all of these things, how do we communicate as humans? We communicate through language. So there is a reason why the language is to name the harmful structures is largely absent. We're not encouraged to see that, to name it. Because once we start naming things, and to
Oh,
find
yeah.
ways to break it and dismantle it, we first need to name it, to understand it. And that is the reason why, like, the book bans and the censorship on books and education and all that, it's because the patriarchy does not want you to have that language to break the system.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think even in this province that I live in, we're experiencing that with our government, with bans and limitations, restrictions.
Mm-hmm.
And when your freedom that you have been granted all this time starts being taken away, and then it's your health care, all these things, I
Mm-hmm.
think we have to start to see the patterns. And again, things are set up in ways where for some, it's hard to connect the dots.
Mm-hmm.
So you think it's isolated, that the government is taking these certain books out of the schools. And for us recently here, sexual health used to be an opt out. So it was always given to kids at school, and it has now moved to opt in. So you have to, as a parent, be on top of knowing when this is going to happen, sign a form, ensure it happens.
Wow.
And it's yeah. And I have two boys who are like, they're like, this is crazy, Mom.
Yeah.
We should be learning this. These are conversations about consent, about safety, about rights that are being taken. And if we can't see that, just even that, I think, we're in for it as a community,
Definitely.
because
And
we're raising the next generation to not know any of this information.
In the Middle East, we do not even have sex education in schools. So this is not something that has been given and taken back. This is something that was never there. And these topics it's considered like a taboo topic. We do not talk about this in schools. So it's up to the parents. How do you want to teach your children? And most parents go with the approach of, you don't need to know these things now. When you're older and you're married, then okay, then when I growing up, I remember when I was getting married, and I asked my mom, she's like, Google it.
You had that opportunity. Thank God there was that.
Google it. And I was telling her, okay, when you were growing up, you had no Google it. How did you know? And she's like, you just find out when it happens. When it happens, you find and I'm breaking this cycle with my child, because I'm gonna say just Google it, or leave it up to whatever the search engine is gonna throw up to my child. And I don't want shame. I don't want this narrative to be filled with shame and secrecy, and we shouldn't talk about this. But I understand, like, when the previous generations, how my mother grew up, how this was not something to be addressed and talked about in a way that does not carry shame with it. So I understand where this is coming from, but I also do not want to continue this cycle. I want to break that cycle. So,
well, that's just it, right? I feel we're in this place as the generation that I'm in, like, we can see what didn't happen and how it didn't serve the elders and the people before us. And we have an opportunity, and not even just to break cycles, but to rebuild cycles. Moving forward. Because what happens once you break them? What do you do after that? We got to do something. So like you are with your own child, figuring out your own new system.
With raising the children, but also with marriage itself. I did not get married in an arranged marriage, just like my grandmother, my mother, all the women in the line I came from. I broke the system in a way and saying, no, I'm not gonna marry a stranger. I'm gonna choose the person I want to marry. I want to fall in love with the person I want to marry. I don't want to just be given away to someone. And I write more details about like my story and how I met my husband and all that, and all the taboos we had to break. And then you see, like, even with all these structures that I broke, you have to rebuild something in its place. Like
Yeah.
as I was telling you, how when we're eating, I 1, 2, 3, let's take the bite together, you know. And this is just one
Yeah.
minor example, but there are so many other factors in a relationship, because growing up, I did not see marriage as a partnership. It is more of like a hierarchy. So having to break that completely, that blueprint, and build another one,
That's just it. Yeah.
that's it's
And
a
you have to
lot of
take
work.
risks with that. Yeah, it is
Yeah.
for sure. Absolutely. But it's fulfilling because
Hmm.
we know what was happening, it wasn't
Definitely.
working
Yeah.
and that's why we want to break and rebuild. And I think that's the premise of this whole conversation
Hmm.
for everyone listening. It's not about being comfortable. Feminism isn't about being
Hmm.
comfortable.
It can be terrifying. It can be scary. You can feel alone, but there is freedom on the other side. There is, once you break through these structures, and there are micro and macro structures. There are things you could do, like I could have an equal partnership in my own home. I could, we split the housework. We do everything as partners. But this is micro. This is within my control because it's inside my household. But there are macro structures which I cannot control or change or break through unless the collective
Yeah.
of all these micro structures is broken. Then you can do that. Like, for example, marriage itself as an institution, I do not believe in it as an institution. I did not want to be a part of it. But I live in a part of the world where if I want to be with the person I love legally, I have to get married. So there was a trade off that I need to do in order to live legally with the person I love. I have to get into a marriage. However, I do not believe in the structure of marriage and what it represents and how women are treated under it. So how am I gonna like balance these two things together and create and break it apart and create another blueprint where it's something else for me myself within my household? I can do that because this is a micro structure,
Yeah.
but I cannot just yet change like the law or be allowed to have, like in the West where couples can live together. They don't necessarily have to be married.
That's right.
This is a macro thing. While I cannot break that as an individual, it needs a lot of micro unlearning and breaking of these structures before the wider collective can change. But you have your power within your own microstructures. You can implement change in that way, and it can impact and change your life for the better. You have control in that aspect, I see.
I think you say that so well, and I think that is
Really?
like,
Because I
whew,
think I'm all over the place with my thoughts right
no, no, no. No, I think it's so helpful because I think sometimes we want to move to the bigger part, the macro,
now.
and then
Mm-hmm.
we get frustrated because we can't change the
Yep,
systems, we can't change the laws, and then we feel like, well, what's the point? What's the point? But we can only start in our own home, like
exactly.
literally, as you said.
Literally,
And
yep.
I think where
Mm-hmm.
that also helps is if in our own home, let's say, as like literal, we are breaking these systems, rebuilding, then I think there is some kind of unity. In this
Yep.
case, you and I are married. And
Mm-hmm.
so if in my own home we know what misogyny is, we know what patriarchy is, my husband and I are working through that. My husband's doing his part.
Mm-hmm.
We're working on that with our children. Then when we're trying to tackle the big world, going to our jobs, dealing with nastiness out in the macro world,
Mm-hmm.
there's a safe haven to be able to come to the micro
Yeah.
system and be able to say, holy crap, I can't believe you had to have that conversation at work like that. But I get it. I know the world works that way.
Yep.
Let's work on that together. When you don't have that unity together, it's very different. And even if you're not married, if you don't have a group, a community to be able to build together, sign petitions, whatever you need to do, again, you're back to being in a lonely, isolated world because you can't tackle the macro as an individual. So I think you do that. You say that really well, because the real work is
in the micro.
What we, we can't control what's happening out there, but we can be in charge of what's happening in our day-to-day in our world.
Yep. Because imagine if like you're doing that in your household, I'm doing that, and then there are 10,000 others, a million others doing that. Imagine the collective power that will be the result of everybody realizing and saying, I can do this on a micro level. It will change the macro eventually.
Yeah. Like a little current coming through. Absolutely. Exactly. It would, for sure. For sure. Well, look, I feel I have taken up more of your time than I told you I would, but this is what happens. I could talk
to you forever.
We get
I'm
talking,
really enjoying your conversation.
And I'm humbled by that, and that I'm honored by that. And I love that, because I always say to people, just get on a call with me and I promise you're going to want to stay. I promise. Because it's real talk, and that's what we do, and that's how you write. And I knew when I reached out to you that you were someone that I just had to have a conversation with, and I'm grateful for you and what you are doing. And honestly, like what you are doing overseas in particular, I bet you there's a group of women in your world that are like exhaling because they have someone like you to be able to help pave the way. So thank you for that. And it's resonating for us here in the West as well. So know what you're doing is
thank you for validating.
Really, really helpful. Like, I thank you for your clarity, your honesty, your refusal to soften what doesn't need softening, but needs discussing. So thank you for that.
Thank you so much for holding space for all of that, and for making me feel less alone. Because when you say that to me, you also give me the motivation and the realization that I am also not alone.
And for those tuning in today that maybe are meeting you for the first time, I doubt it, but if they are, where can they find you in your work, your books? Like, where can they get in touch?
FaridaD.com is my website, so you can find everything there. There's a Farida D's room, which is going to be like a monthly blog over there. I started it this month, so you're going to look forward to hopefully monthly articles there. And then my books are also there. There's a space where I'm trying to build a community at the moment. So you can sign up, just drop your email, sign up. I'm trying to build a space where we can have like once a month meetings, virtual meetings, and discuss all these structures and issues and have these conversations. So anything, any updates, everything will be on the website, faridad.com.
That's amazing. And lastly, is there anything that you wish we did talk about today, or that you want to go back and add on to that maybe we didn't get a chance to before we wrap up?
I think we did cover a very, very, even a wider basis than I expected.
Thank you, Farida. Thank you so much. I'm so glad that this happened today. And I really hope we can stay in touch, and that maybe you come back again and we talk about some of the other books as well. Yeah?
We have a lot to talk about. We're not going to be enough in 1 hour. We're definitely going to meet up again.
Okay. I'm so excited. Thank you for this. Thank you for saying yes.
Thank you so much, Kieran.
Yeah. Okay. You have a wonderful rest. I don't know if you're in the afternoon or night or wherever, but you have a wonderful rest of your week. How about I say that?
Thank you so much. Same right back at you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you to everyone else as well for joining us today. So if you have any questions for Farida, you know now where to reach her. And you know where we are. These conversations, I always say, are door openers. We're just starting to have them. So please add on. Please tell us your feedback. We really appreciate it. We want to bring Farida back. So give us your feedback. Thank you.